In this video, I'm going to give you an overview of the reloading process, show you how to set up the press and the dies step by step. And by the end of it, you should be able to reload your own ammo and have a completed cartridge just like this. So let's get to it. Hey there, Kyle Schultz from UltimateReloader.com. So before I set up the press, set up the dies, and reload some ammo and show you how everything works, I wanted to go over some benefits and a high-level overview of the reloading process. But if you just want to see how everything works, skip to this timestamp right here and that'll get you going. But if you're a new user, I do recommend sticking around. So the first benefit is precision and performance tuning for your rifle. Now this can be a huge benefit over factory ammo because you can do things like swap out a bullet or swap out the powder or both, and that can make a big difference in your group size. The other one is customized ammo, so reduced recoil, subsonic loads. These are available usually through boutique ammo manufacturers, but you're going to pay a lot more for it versus hand loading yourself. The other one is it can be more cost efficient over time, especially for exotic cartridges, rifle cartridges, or volume pistol shooters, like when you're shooting competitions. You'll see the savings really add up over time. A high-level overview of the reloading process looks like this. First, you're going to pick up or buy used brass. Now, that's what this looks like on my left here. And after that, you're going to want to clean it. Now, you can buy new brass, but you're going to pay a lot more. And to be honest, I find a lot of satisfaction in reusing brass. It's part of the reloading process. It's in the name. And cleaning your brass is a whole different step. We have plenty of videos on our channel covering how to do that. And there's a lot of information online for different processes, but that's the first thing you're going to want to do. So in the middle here is that same brass cleaned. So that's what that will look like. So after you have your brass cleaned, what we'll want to do is resize it. And then after that, we're going to prime the brass. Then we'll throw the powder or the propellant. Then we're going to seat a bullet like what you see over here. And then lastly, we're going to crimp, especially for pistol, and also for some rifles, you'll crimp as well, like AR-15 or tubular magazines, like my 30-30. So that is just kind of a overview of the entire end-to-end process. Now, what will you need? Listed here are a few different things between components, like I mentioned, cases, powder, and primers, but you also got gears and tools. Now you can buy all this stuff separately if you like, and of course there are a lot of kits available online, and that is where Dillon is now offering their own Get Started Reloading Kit. Now, they sent this to us for us to check out, and I jumped on this one because the 550 is one of my go-to presses around here, especially for a precision rifle or even pistol a lot of times. And I'll get into the benefits of that later on of why you'd want to use a progressive press instead of starting with a single stage. But first, let's get this thing out of the box and see what's included here compared to my what you will need section. All right, so as you can see, everything is out of the box, and I was quite surprised, and I shouldn't have been because I knew what came with this kit already, but when you have it laid out and it's the fact it's taking up a whole 6-foot bench, it's almost overwhelming looking. But let's just go through what's included here. So obviously you get the press itself, and with that you get a caliber conversion kit of your choice that you chose when you purchase the press. So in this case, it's 45 ACP for us. You also get some mounting hardware to mount the press to your bench. You get the thumb wheel, which is for advancing the press after you cycle the handle. You get a primer catch tray. You get a manual. You get hex keys. You get the small, in this case for our press, the small primer cup. So already installed, which is nice, is the large primer cup for 45 ACP. You get a 45 ACP case gauge for us, or the case gauge that is proper for your cartridge. You also get a 3-die set, which the 3-die set is for pistols, which is nice. So that includes the sizing and decapper die, the bullet seating die, a crimp die, and a couple spare parts and a manual as well, which is nice. You get a pair of calipers, which includes a battery removal tool, 2 extra batteries, it looks like a certificate. You get the powder funnel die, which will be for pouring in our powder, and part of that will be used in conjunction with the caliber conversion kit. You get a powder trickler right here, which is nice to have regardless of whether you're loading pistol or rifle. It's always good to have handy whenever you need it. Get a primer flip tray. You get an electronic scale with a pan and power supply, manual, and it looks like batteries as well, which is nice. You get an ammo box for when you're done loading all your ammo, you can safely put it in here and take it to the range with you. You get case lube, which we'll definitely be using for our resizing operations. So that's nice that it's a spray lube. And spray lube for progressive presses is really handy to use. And in fact, when I'm loading progressive, most of the time, that's what I like to use instead of single stage. So, and lastly, you get a 1 caliber manual. Now, interestingly, I haven't seen one of these in a long time. Now, yeah, I'm not that old, but I did start in 2018 or so. And when I started, I bought one of these for my 30-30, and that's what I planned on loading for. And in fact, I wasn't sure that I was going to keep on loading. That was just my goal. And it worked really well. It's really handy to have. And in fact, I don't even know where it is these days. I think it's next to all my other manuals. So I haven't picked it up in a while. So I need to comb through that. But anyway, that's all what you get. Again, it's quite a lot. So now let's compare what's included versus what's not. So let's go on over there. All right, so obviously it does not include components, which is your bullets, your brass, your powder, your primers. None of the kits on the market that I've ever seen includes that. So just keep that in mind. You're going to need to buy that separately, whether it's online or local. So just do some shopping around for that. And we have videos and kind of guides and helping you pick those components out if you need. So just pick one of our videos something that you're loading for. We have plenty on 45 ACP for sure. So for the gear, obviously the reloading press, the die set, the powder scale is included. Now powder measure is not included, and we can dive into that a little bit later. There is an upgrade kit. That's something we'll cover in a future video. But a priming tool, I put an asterisk there, and the reason I put an asterisk is because technically a priming tool isn't included, but you're doing on press priming, and some presses don't have that. A lot do. It depends. And that may still be something you want to do separately, but you don't have to. In this case, we'll just be using the on-press priming for this video. You get case lube. You get the reloading manual right over here, which is really nice. Most kits don't include even the 1 caliber guide. When I got mine stuff, I had to buy it separately. Again, these aren't that much, but it is nice to have just ready to go. Press mount, that is optional. You technically don't need one. You can mount the press directly to your bench. In this case, when I set it up, I will be using a strong mount, which is sold separately. You can buy them. They're pretty good. For tools, case cleaning kit. As I mentioned, that's pretty much always separate. I've never seen that in a kit. Case trimmer, not included. Chamfer deburr tool, nope. Calipers, well, yeah, we have some of those. That's nice. Again, that's something I had to buy separately. Loading blocks, that's an interesting one. That's not included, but you do get the case, for your loaded ammo. You could use that as a loading block in a pinch. Now, what is a loading block? Loading block is just that. It's just a block that holds your cases while you're loading them, and it's really handy to have. They're not much extra. I do recommend picking one up. If you have a 3D printer, you could print one too. All right, so primer flip tray. Well, yep, that's included. A powder funnel, again, an asterisk because yeah, this isn't a traditional powder funnel in the sense of like a separate funnel that you pour your powder into. It's an on-press powder funnel. So it kind of counts, kind of doesn't. You may want to pick up one of those plastic ones. They're a few dollars just in case to have around. A powder trickler. Yep, we got that included. And safety glasses, no, not included, but come on, you can find those basically for free. So what I'm going to do next is get this press mounted to a Dillon strong mount, get everything kind of set up. And then what I'll be doing is walking you step by step through all the die setup and loading process. So let's get to it. So as you can tell, I got the press mounted. Very straightforward operation. Just 4 bolts through the Dillon strong mount like I said I was going to use. And then from there, just put the strong mount and attached it to our ultimate reloader bench system here. Pretty rigid overall, really easy to use. Again, one of these are sold separately. You can also mount this directly to your bench, which probably most people will end up doing. And like I showed earlier, the hardware is included to do so. The other thing I did was attach the handle. Also very straightforward, just use a 7/8 crescent and then a hex driver to push through the through hole here on the handle. There's a little hole on the side, and that helps you just get leverage so when you're tightening down the handle, it's not rotating on you because on the bottom there's a nylock nut there to keep it from spinning. So yeah, really straightforward. Then lastly, I installed the primer catch assembly, and that was that part of it. And then, meanwhile, I went ahead and got the calipers set up, which is straightforward, just installing the batteries. I took both batteries out and put them in the storage container. Then I also installed and put together the powder trickler. So there's an extension tube on there that's left-hand threaded, so I just threaded that on, and that allows it to be given enough distance between the powder trickler base and your scale. And also went ahead and started setting up and getting familiar and warming up the Dillon scale as well. So all those are kind of on the side and ready to go. So what I wanted to cover was getting the press initially set up with a part of our powder conversion kit and the thumb wheel. One of these is going to go on the side of the press ram, and the other one is the detent ball for your shell plate. So let's go ahead and get those installed. Before we install the shell plate, we need to pre-install a couple things, one of which is the detent ball. So you'll see that the detent ball, I have it set here on top of a spring. So just grab both the detent ball and the spring. And on the left-hand side, if you're standing behind the press, there's an opening right here. So first, drop in that spring and then carefully set the detent ball on top and just push it in to make sure that it's fully installed. Now we'll lower the handle, and on the side here, you'll see a threaded hole. That's where this set screw with the brass tip comes in. So grab the 1/8 Allen key that was included with the kit, and we're just going to carefully thread it into the side of the ram here, like so. And then we want to make sure that we're pushing it in a little further where it's not flush but actually sunk in a little bit. And the reason is when you raise the handle, you'll see, if you notice closely, that the set screw would hit the side of the frame if you had it too far out, and you don't want to do that. So just make sure for now that we have it sunk in just a little bit, just to be safe. So now we'll turn to the shell plate bolt, the indexing wheel, and then the conversion kit itself. So inside the conversion kit, you'll see a few things. One is the powder funnel, which we don't need right now. You'll see 3 indexing buttons and the shell plate. Right now we're just focused on the shell plate. So on the shell plate, you'll see that there are 4 holes around this perimeter here, and they do 2 things. One of them sets on the detent ball like so. So if you drop it in, you'll see that's kind of set nicely on the detent ball. And then the other, on the opposite side where the indexing wheel is, you'll see these bosses. So you want to make sure that these bosses go into one of those holes, just like so. So now you have it kind of all set on top of the press. Now take the shell plate bolt and we're going to drop it on through. Do be careful, because if you have that set screw that we tightened on the side of the ram earlier, if it's too far in, it may not let your bolt go through. So if it's not, just lower the handle and pull the threads back out a little bit. But in my case, it seems just fine. Right on the edge there, I guess that's pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and thumb tighten that about as far as we can go. Now we'll lower the handle, and I'm going to take the 1/8 key again and back out that set screw further this time where it is sticking out. So make sure you don't raise the handle and damage your frame. Now take the 1/4 hex key, and on top of the tool head in the center here, you'll see that there's a through hole where you can insert that in and thread in the shell plate bolt. So now I just want to tighten it down till it doesn't go anymore, and we're going to back it out probably about 1/8 of a turn or so, about like so, and then tighten down this set screw. And what this set screw with the brass tip is doing is pushing against that shell plate bolt. So it's basically keeping it from rotating. It's like an anti-rotation. So now let's raise the handle, and you should be able to smoothly operate the shell plate, like so. Now what you can do last, if you want, we don't need to since we will be setting up dies, is you can go ahead and install these indexing buttons, or locator buttons is really what they're called. That way they're all kind of there and ready for you to use, and you simply will remove them as you need to, but it keeps them nice and handy. So that's how you install the shell plate. Next, let's lube some cases and get some dies installed. Before we set up the sizing die, let's go ahead and lube some of our clean brass. So if you take a piece of brass and the case gauge and you drop the brass in, you'll see that it definitely does not fit. Now this should be, when you drop it in, it should be easily and freely dropping all the way. And that's definitely not going to work. And I'll show you, just take another random piece, and that's even worse. And of course you could force it, but that's telling us that it's incorrect. So you'll need to grab your case lube, and what I like to do is use a plastic bag or a box. You can use both or either or, but what we'll do is I like the bag method, since especially for me personally, I'm in apartment living. I like to keep this stuff contained. We're just gonna drop a few handfuls of brass in there like so. Let's shake up this case lube. And why I have the box is once we get this all lubed up, we'll let it air dry for a little bit, for about 5 minutes. So just go ahead and spray several pumps of this case lube in here, while giving it a shake. That's probably more than good enough. So then close the bag. And just kind of knead it, you know. And that's why I like that method, because it keeps all that just inside. And you could do this in the box as well. And so when you pick up a piece of brass, it should feel really greasy, which is good. So that means we're thoroughly lubed. Then we'll take our box and just pour it in. Like so. So let's just let this dry for about 5 minutes or so and set up our sizing die in the meantime. Okay, so now that's been about 5 minutes. My cases are dry. And if you pick one up, you should feel a little bit of lubrication on them. And it should be dry, not too much. You don't want it too slick, but you want it slick enough. If you need more, just simply spray more on, inside your bag or in your box and just wait 5 more minutes. Pretty straightforward. Spray case lube is really forgiving too. And it's easy to use, especially, and great to use for batch, ammo loading like this. So first thing we're going to want to set up is our sizing die. Now the sizing die is pretty easy to find by, if you look on the bottom here, you'll see a decap pin, so a little pokey thing sticking out of the bottom here. And what it's going to do is size the brass down so it will fit in a case gauge, or more importantly, your chamber, and it will also remove the old primer. So on the 550 specifically, there are a total of 4 stations. On station number 1 is where we're going to be putting the sizing die. And it will also be acting as our priming station in the next step here. So in order to install the die, just simply place it and start threading it on in to station number 1. And we'll thread it till we get to about the bottom of the tool head, so where the bottom of the die is flush with the bottom of the tool head there, right about there. That's way above where it needs to be. But let's go ahead and lower the handle and keep on threading the die down until it touches that shell plate. Right about there. So I'm going to back it off about 1/8 of a turn or so. So it means backing it out by turning it counterclockwise. About right there. Go ahead and carefully hand tighten your lock ring. And I'm gonna actually rotate it counterclockwise a little bit more, and the reason for that is when I go to tighten down this lock ring, it's going to rotate the die back into position to about where I want it to be. And this can be adjusted again, so this is just the initial check, and if it needs adjusted, we'll adjust it and check the case gauge. So take the die wrench and tighten down the shell, or the lock ring. And now this is where we take our brass that has been lubed, it was cleaned, lubed, and everything, and ready to go. So in order to size some brass, just slide it in to station number 1 like so, and then lower the handle and use firm pressure, and you'll size the brass. And you heard the popping pin working pretty hard to decap that brass. These are spring-loaded decapping pins, which are really nice, especially for bulk brass. So as you can see, it's been decapped and resized, and we can check that with our case gauge. So let's drop it in, and there we go. It drops in freely. So what you're looking for is a free movement like that. So if you can just, whoop, and not drop it on the floor. If you can drop it in your case gauge and tip your case gauge and it falls through easily, that's a good indicator that your sizing die is properly set up. The last check you want to do is run your thumb over the top of the case gauge. And what you're feeling is between the case gauge and the base of your brass there, you want to make sure that it feels flush. If there's a step, if the brass is sitting higher than the case gauge, that means you're going to need to turn your die clockwise or turn it down a little bit more to size it a little bit more. If it's below flush, that means you need to back the die out a little bit, so counterclockwise. So in this case, it feels just about right. It's right around flush, which is about where I want to be. So let's go ahead and take another piece of brass here, because in this case, this is mixed range pickup brass, so I just want to make sure that it's going to handle multiple head stamps just fine. A little bit less of a problem if you're using the same lot of brass or same brand, which can make it much easier. And I do recommend that if you obviously bought new brass for your first setup there. Yep, that one feels good too, nice and free. You can also use your chamber instead of a case gauge, but you do obviously want to be careful with that. But it's a great way to make sure that's going to work in your particular firearm and chamber and function really well. So yeah, there we go. Okay, so that's part one of station one in a way. So what we're going to do next is get priming set up. So we're going to get some primers, use the primer flip tray, and I'll show you how to prime the brass before we move on to station two. So before we begin on press priming, what you'll need to grab is your primer flip tray, the primers of your choice. In this case, we're using CCI large pistol primers since we have large pistol size brass. And it's also recommended that you grab some safety glasses. Eyeglasses can work, but it's ideal that you have prescription safety glasses as well if that's what you need. So I just have normal ones since my eyes are still good. We're also using the same brass that we already lubed up. And what we're going to do is kind of complete a station one operation. We're going to size decap and then insert a primer. So first, let's go ahead and lift up the top off of our primer flip tray. And you'll see there are two halves. One half is smooth, and then the other half has these concentric circles. This is the one that you want for loading your primers into. So grab your primers. In this case, I'm just going to start with 100. And in this case, label side up is what we want, basically label side facing the concentric circles. So that way we can load them elegantly. So just push through here, the tray, and let all the primers fall gently into the tray. Like so. Okay. Oh, there we go. One more. Finger stuck on it. Okay. So you can set these aside. You can keep it as a reminder if you like. Now this is pretty simple. You're just going to shake this back and forth, and what we want to see are all the anvils. So this kind of golden color in this case, we want to see those facing up. Sometimes it helps to pick it up. And some primers, in my experience, like to be a little stubborn, like some of these are, and this is pretty common for any given primer brand. So I typically just manually flip them. That's just me anyway, but if you want to be stubborn and shake away, have at it, but I'm gonna brute force it here. And last one, nope, one more. One more there. Just make sure you double check that you have all of them flipped up. Okay, we're good. So as you see, all the primer anvils are facing up, which is good. Now we can take our lid, the smooth side, and this is where the flip part of the name comes in handy. Just turn it over like so, and now lift what is now the top. And now we have all of our primers oriented and ready to go. So now we can move on over to the press. Okay, so before we start priming, let's make sure we have the proper primer cup installed. So if you lower the handle, we'll see that the large primer cup size is already installed, which is nice that Dillon does that for us. It's one less installation step that we have to do. The small primer cup size is more of a gold color, so they are color coded. Large is silver, small is gold, and they're universal. So large works with large pistol and large rifle, same for small, works with small pistol, small rifle. So what we'll be doing is essentially doing the same step as last time with just the addition of priming. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my dorky, huge safety glasses on because I value my eyeballs. And let's scoot our primers forward here that we already prepped. Let's go ahead and grab a primer and place it in station one, anvil up, like so. So you see the gold color there? That means that we're good to go. Now let's grab one of our cases, just like we did before, slide it in station one, size, decap, and now in order to prime, it will happen when we raise the handle. And we'll raise the handle, push forward ever so slightly with a good amount of pressure, not too much, and let's flip over the case and check our primer seating depth. So if you run your finger across the top of the case, the base of the case, it should feel flush or just under flush, kind of like the case gauge from earlier. So as you can see, this is looking pretty good. And if you set down the case on something flat, I'm just going to use a primer tray here. You see how it doesn't wobble? That means that the primer is properly seated. So let's just do one more for good measure. Still getting into the groove here. I'm actually used to the RL550, which has automatic priming, which is an upgrade, like I mentioned. But this isn't bad either. Oh yeah, that one's seated real nice. Check that one. I'm having a good time. I'll do one more. And then we'll move on to station 2. Yeah, looking good. And that's with mixed head stamp too. So, okay, what we'll do next is set up station 2, which will be powder funnel and case flare. So before we install the case flare and powder funnel die into station 2, we actually need to set up the die first. But first I want to cover, why do you want to flare your cases? Well, with pistol, you want to flare the cases out ever so slightly so proper bullet tension can be acquired. And that also aids in seating operation as well, where it's much smoother. If you don't flare the cases, then you're going to crush cases potentially, scrape bullets. It's just not going to make good quality ammo. So it just really is an aid in bullet seating, which will be our next step. So what happens is the sizing die will actually bring the case down further than bullet diameter. So that's why we need to bring it out ever so slightly to have proper bullet tension. So what you'll need is your caliber conversion kit from earlier, and all you should have left is the funnel itself. You'll need the funnel die, a lock ring, and this is just another set screw that we'll be using for our funnel die. You'll need a 3/32 Allen key. So if you look on the funnel die, if you pick it up, you'll see not only is there a letter, but there's also a groove where that letter sits. And this is important because this is where our set screw is going to bite into and hold in this funnel in our funnel die. And on the funnel die is also an opening, a threaded opening for our set screw. Pretty straightforward. So in order to install the funnel, you just drop the funnel down through the bottom of the die. And if you look through the opening, and if you move this back and forth, you should see the groove in picture coming in and out of view. So in this case, just bottoming it out is working here. So I'm going to take the set screw and go ahead and pre-install it. Just like so. I'm going to take the Allen key and tighten it down. Doesn't need to be crazy here. Just tight enough. Like so. So now we have the die assembled. Now we can take our lock ring and pre-install it. And I'd say to start, it's ideal to bring the lock ring pretty much all the way to the top. And now we have the die prepped and ready for installation. So let's move on to station 2 over here. So I'm going to thread in the die till it's about halfway through the bottom, or in the middle of the tool head, should I say? Close to right there. Now we'll take one of our cases that has been sized and primed from our previous step, and we'll remove the locator button that we installed previously, slide it into station number 2 like so, and then just lower the handle. And now I'm going to keep on threading in the die until I feel it touch the top of the case. I'm going to hold the case so it doesn't spin on us. About right there. And if I give it a little bit of pressure, it's obviously not going to seat the bullet the way we want. It's not going to be flared, but that's a good starting point. So I'm going to keep a bullet handy and keep adjusting until I get it about where I want it. So I'm going to start, I'm going to use this set screw as a reference. So I'm going to start with a full turn or so, which probably still won't be enough. I've already got my case in there. I could feel that it flared a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit more. Maybe another full turn. And you can measure this, but it's really best just to go by feel. So what you're looking for is when the bullet is placed in, does it sit firmly? And when it does, that means you're good to go. It's really easy to overdo it. So if you see your case really belling out a lot, that probably means you have too much flare. And that means you're going to overwork your brass and shorten its life. You don't want to do that. So you want to go just enough and stop right there. As you see, when I set the bullet in, it still kind of wants to topple over, which means I just want to go a little bit more. Maybe another quarter turn or so. Let's get a little bit more solid surface. Use the press as my setting point here. A little bit more. Ah, right there, that's it. That's exactly what I want. So you'll know you'll have it when you set the bullet in, and it almost feels like it's sticking a little bit. But again, not too much. If it's getting sunk in way too much, then that means you probably overflared. And you can also just look at your case and kind of feel it with it in your index finger. And again, if you feel something too aggressive, that means that you probably flared too much. But if you look here, that just sets in really nicely. And so what that means is when we go index our press, as we're rotating it around, this bullet isn't going to fall out. So now that I got my adjustment where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and hold on to the die so we don't mess with our adjustment here. Get this finger tight, take our die wrench, and cinch it down, just like so. And now we should be set and ready to go. Let's just verify our setting. Perfect. All right, that's exactly what I want. So now we can reinstall our locator button so we keep track of it. The last thing we need to do is take the plastic funnel and place it right on top of the die like so. And now it's ready for dumping in powder, and we'll be flaring our cases at the same time. So now that we got our die set up and locked in where we want it, let's move on to load data and powder charging. Okay, so in order to charge cases, what you'll need is the scale, the powder trickler, and of course the powder of your choice, and the 1 caliber manual that came with the kit. Now, I've already flipped through this. It's pretty easy. It has a lot of information in here. These are pretty in-depth what they are, but I've already marked a spot that I like, and I found under the Hodgdon powder section the powder that I want, which is CFE pistol. And this is for a 185 grain Hornady wad cutter type of bullet. So it's not quite the same, but I did some research, and again, be careful if you do that. And I also looked at some of the previous stories that we've done with this bullet. And last time, Gavin and I charged 5.9 gauge, which I found was a little bit too light. And I'm looking here with this one, and it can go anywhere from 7.1 to 8.1. So I figured I'd go at 7.9 grains, because last time our velocities were just a little lower than what I'd like to see. So I'd like to bump it up a little bit. And the max velocity for these particular bullets is 1,250. So I also want to make sure I stay under that. So I want to get more velocity, but not go too crazy. So I figured 7.9 would be a good starting point. And of course, there are a bunch of different powders and bullet combinations in here. So just sort through this and get an idea of what you want to use. And just again, if you want to start with the minimum load, which I highly recommend, that's what I would do for sure. Test it first, be safe, don't go crazy. Just make sure you are being careful and use trial and error, and invest in a chronograph if you need to. That way you can get the velocities, get an idea of where you're at. And of course you can look for pressure signs as well with your primer pocket. So again, use the minimum loads, please, and do be careful. This is not something you want to mess around with. So I've already let the scale warm up for about 20 plus minutes. I've got it calibrated, zeroed with the pan in place. I also got the powder trickler loaded with powder, again, in this case, CFE pistol. And as an extra, I 3D printed a scoop. Of course, you can buy these online if you want, but if you have a 3D printer, why not make and print a scoop? I designed this one myself, and in fact, maybe I'll link the STL file for you guys if you want to download this one. This will throw about 10 grains or plus of CFE pistol, I figured out, which is way more than we need, so I'm not going to be filling it all the way up. So in order to charge cases, it's really straightforward. What we'll do is take one of our cases that we've already prepped from the previous steps. I'm going to remove that locator button and set it aside. I'm going to set it in station number 2 and do the same thing that we've done before, which is flare. But this time I'm going to leave the case inside of the flare/funnel die. And now what we'll do is move over to the scale. So I'm going to scoop up a little bit of powder here. I'm going to go about right there, so not quite full, and see where that lands us. 6.7. I might go just a smidge more to get us a little higher. That way we're not spinning the trickler. Whoa, 7.6. Okay, that's pretty good. 7.7. Okay, let's let it settle. Now let's carefully turn the trickler. In this case, I'm turning it towards me. Right there. Now don't go crazy with the trickler. It's easy to overdo it. And if you do, it's okay. You can just dump out the powder and try again. But go slow, let the scale settle for a bit, and then make sure it's at the charge that you want. In this case, 7.9. So now we're ready to charge. And this is really easy. All you do is pour the pan over top the funnel and it will charge the case. Tap it out, make sure all of your powder's out of there, set it back on the scale, make sure your scale re-zeros, carefully lower the handle, especially since we don't have a locator button in here. And now you'll see we have a charged case. And after each charge, when you set it into, say if you have a loading block, you can look at each one, especially as you go, and I would definitely look at each one before you seat bullets. But you want to visually inspect each case, make sure you have the right amount of charge in there. With pistol, it's really easy. If you have too much of a charge and it's near the top of that case, that is way overcharged. So always double, triple, even quadruple check if you have to, that you have the right charge. That is very important. I cannot stress that enough. So that is the process of charging powder. I'm not going to bore you with doing a bunch of these because that's pretty slow. So what we'll do next, now that we're charging powder, is set up the bullet seating die. In order to set up the seating die, what you'll need is the die box that came with your kit. And in my case, it's the die right in the center here. So you'll say, and you can verify it by looking at the bottom of the die where it says cartridge, 45 ACP, and seat die. So with that, you'll also need the bullets that you've selected. You'll need to know the cartridge overall length, or COL. And in my case, for these Berry's 185s, it's 1.250. So that's what I'm going to be aiming for. While you're at it, go ahead and grab the calipers and set them up if you haven't already. So what you want to do first before you thread the die into the press is look to see if the proper seating stem is installed. In this case, I can look down the die and I can see that the round profile is already in there, which matches the round profile of my bullets that I selected. But let's just say you need to change it. I'll show you how to do that. So on the top of the seating die, there's this pin. Simply just pull that off, and the inside of the die will come loose like so. Then you'll see another pin right here. You could take the top pin and actually just push this internal pin out. And then make sure you keep track of it and that it doesn't go anywhere. And then the seating stem already popped out for us. So if you look at it, there's the round side and there's the flat side. So if I try to put this bullet on the flat side, yes, it will work, but it's not very optimal. So just choose the appropriate profile. There's really only two choices, really straightforward. So I'm going to reinstall this seating stem. And in order to do that, you'll see a bigger opening here. I'm going to line that with the bigger opening on the sleeve of the die and drop that in so it's close. So that way when I go to put this pin back in, it falls in place like that. Now make sure this pin is flush with the die body. Reinstall like so, then reinstall the top pin and you're good to go. Simple as that. So if you ever need to maintain this die or clean it for any reason, that shows you how easy it is to take it apart. So let's move on over to the press. So in order to start installing this die, just thread it in. And then what we want is the bottom of the die flush with the bottom of the tool head. Just to start. About right there. Now I'm gonna go ahead and remove the locator pin and set that aside carefully. I'm gonna take one of our charged cases that we've done previously and put it into station 3. Take a bullet, set it on top, and then lower the handle. Right now, I don't feel any resistance, so I'm gonna go ahead and thread the die down until I feel a little bit of a resistance there, which means it's touching the case and the bullet. So I know if I go ahead and try to seat this, it's gonna be way too long. So I'm actually just gonna go ahead and give it about like a full turn or so, maybe a bit more, because I know that will be plenty enough. And I'm gonna go ahead and just, while it's under pressure, a little bit of pressure, tighten this lock ring just by hand. That way when we go to do our adjustments, it's a little easier for us. So push down, grab our calipers. Now right now they're zeroed, so if yours aren't zeroed, I'll mess it up for you just to show you. Right now you can see that it's negative. So you don't want to put a lot of pressure, just make sure that the blades are clean. In this case they still are because these are brand new. And just touch the blades together, hold 0, and you'll see that it's zeroed out. And just verify several times. If you see the 0.5 marked, moving up and down, don't worry about that. These usually are not that accurate in the 0.5 anyway, and it's plenty for our use. So let's go ahead and measure where we're at. And visually I can tell this is way too long. 1.357. So again, we're aiming for 1.250 in my particular case. Follow your load data, of course, and that's what you'll be referencing. So I'm gonna give it probably about a full turn or so, because one full turn is about 70 thousandths with these Dillon dies anyway. Give that another seat. That's looking a little bit better, but could tell we still got a little ways to go. Yeah, so 1.283. Try right there. Oh, already got that sitting there. 1.272. I like to take it slow at first just to be sure. That way you're not overdoing it. And that way You can easily add more, but you can't take it back. So that way you can avoid doing this all over again. 1.65, just working my way down here. And I'm hand tightening the lock ring every time. That way when we go to actually cinch it down with the die wrench, we'll be set. Because again, the die wrench is gonna cinch it down a little bit further, usually by like 1/8 of a turn or so. 1.251. Okay, let's go ahead and tighten it down. Yeah, as you see, it moved about 1/8 of a turn. So if we got it dialed in exactly where we wanted, it might overshoot. And if this is a little bit shorter, I'm okay with that. And we're right on the nose, 1.25 thousandths. So I might tighten down the die just a little bit more, just to be safe. But that is how you set up the seating die. Really straightforward. Basically thread it in, keep turning it down until you get the desired cartridge overall length. So now that that is set up, what we'll do next is set up the crimping die. Okay, time for our final station setup, the crimp die. So let's grab the last remaining die and start threading it into the tool head. And it's very similar to the seating die. So we're going to line up the bottom of the die with the tool head, about right there. Now let's take the cartridge that we loaded with a seated bullet. So it's sized, primed, charged, and a bullet seated. Let's go ahead and place it on station number 4 and remove the locator pin. So now we're going to lower the handle and we're going to thread in the die until we feel a little bit of resistance. And that's just going to give us a starting point here. About right there. So now I'm going to raise the handle, give it about 1/8 of a turn or so, lower the handle, put some pressure on this, and hand tighten the lock ring for now. So we should have performed a little bit of a crimp, probably nothing crazy. What we can do is take the very edges of our calipers and put it at the very end of the case there and then zero it out. This can be a little tricky to do. And you just want to verify that you're consistent here. So I'm seeing 0. And what we're aiming for is -1 to 2 thousandths of crimp. And another way you can check it is by dropping it in the case gauge. Right now I'm seeing 0, and right now this one actually drops in just fine. So we're probably okay, but I'd like to give it a little bit more crimp just for some extra safety factor there. But you don't want to go too far. So let's go ahead and loosen this a little bit and give it another 1/8 of a turn or so. And recrimp. And very similar to the seating die, this is a adjust as necessary thing. So right now I'm seeing about, -2 thousandths or so. So you want to make sure you're being consistent. Now that we have that set, what we're going to do is run this cartridge back through the die. And we're going to hold pressure on it and then tighten down our lock ring with the die wrench. Just like that. So our final check will be with the case gauge, and let's just make sure that it cleanly falls in and out. Very similar to when we set up the sizing die. And so if it gauges all right, then we're good to go. So that is how you set up the crimp die. Really straightforward, easy to do. So what you'll want to do next is, especially if you're using mixed head stamp brass like I am, is load several more rounds just like I did, doing the same process. It's okay to take it slow, but double check all your measurements. Make sure your powder charge is correct. Of course, that's more of, in this case, the user paying attention. Make sure you're charging the right amount of powder. Does your primers look good? Does your sizing look good? Does your seating look good? Does your crimp look good? So basically double check everything and verify it with the case gauge that's included. And once you have a handful of rounds or so and you're confident that everything is set up, then you will finally be able to do full progressive reloading. So I'm confident everything's set up throughout off camera. I've done some testing here. Everything's consistent so far. So that's what we'll do next, is I'll show you full progressive reloading on the 550. Okay, so I have everything laid out. Let's load some ammo. Time to put on the dorky safety glasses again, since I will be priming. That's what we'll do first. Primer, anvil up, case, for size and decap, and prime. Now we can do the same thing. Primer, case, sure it's set in, okay. Up. Now we can throw a first charge here. First charge, in we go. Prime, advance. Now it's time to seat a bullet. And then, same thing. Primer, case. Takes me a minute to get my moves down too, you know. Okay, now to throw another charge. Settled. Charge going in. Down. Prime. Advance. Now let's go in order here. Let's do prime, case, and then bullet. There we go. And we're good to go. Up. We need another charge. And obviously, as you can tell, charging cases is the slowest part of the operation. And if you wanted to, you could add a gravity-fed powder measure, you know, drum, rotary style. Can be found anywhere. And you could throw a massive charge, like a workup charge essentially, and then trickle in the rest. That's one way to do it for sure. 7.9, good. Down, prime, advance. So there is one cartridge, which we can now satisfying place in the ammo container. So let's just do another one. I won't bore you with this process. You probably get the gist. But it is fun, you know. Bullet. On up. There's my scoop. 7.4. I'll call that good for a trickle. 7.9 stable. Okay. Pour that in. Down. Prime. Advance. Another cartridge. So that's all there is to it. You do need to take your time. As you can see, I'm not perfect here. It takes a minute to get your moves down. To be honest, I haven't used the basic loader before, so doing all the things is quite new to me. I have been spoiled by having priming handled for me and even bullet seating sometimes handled for me. So all you have to do is pretty much just pull the handle. And that's great. Of course, there's a lot more to look out for. And for a new user, that can be quite overwhelming. So what I want to cover next is upgrade path for the BL550. So I loaded about 18 more rounds, as you can see here. Just wanted to get in the groove of using the press. It's quite nice, and definitely the slowest thing is charging powder. Even setting in the primer as much, I thought that would bother me. It actually doesn't, it's not too bad. I thought it would be a little bit more fiddly, but it's actually quite nice. It sits in there really well. It's pretty easy to place in there, at least for me. I have pretty small hands, but I'd say the biggest exhaustion for me was charging all the powder every time. Like after a while, you're like, okay, this is pretty slow. Again, you could speed that up with a drum style powder measure if you like. But I did some rough numbers with my 18 rounds in about 14 minutes, give or take. I did have to, I calculated for 13 and a half minutes because I calculated starting the cameras and doing some loading. So with 13 and a half minutes and 18 rounds, that equals about 80 rounds per hour. And looking online, doing some research, that's anywhere from 2 to 4 times faster than a single stage, which is nice. And you also don't have the whole separate process of dragging out each tool and, you know, changing dies and all that. You can kind of just stay focused on what you're doing, which is really nice. And the cool thing about this is that you can treat it as a single stage if you want. You don't have to load all the stations. You can just insert, you know, your brass like we did before and just go station by station. Or you can even use it as a turret, basically, which is probably what I would do if you wanted to start slow. You know, just insert one piece of brass and cycle it through to get used to the motions. And, you know, if you got used to the motions, maybe had a bit of a faster powder charging setup, you could really crank out some ammo. And for pistol, that might be a little slower than some people might like. But if you're serious about it, you probably would be upgrading anyway. And so with that, what does an upgrade look like? Well, they do sell an upgrade kit. And what that does is automates your priming, and most of all, automates your powder charging with a powder measure on top of the press. And the kit runs around $299.95, right under $300. And to be honest, while this is a great starter, I would definitely recommend upgrading later on down the line. And that's the nice thing about this press is it will work, it will go with you. So you're not stuck with a single stage. You're not stuck without an upgrade path. You can add more to this as you want. You can add different caliber conversion kits. Once you have just this basic setup as it is, you've set a good foundation to keep building upon it. And this is, again, I really do like this press. I truly do, because it is capable of precision ammo, and it is capable enough for pistol ammo as well. Again, maybe not for the highest of volume of shooters, but for an average Joe who just wants to shoot a fair amount of pistol per year, this is a good option. So it will definitely speed up your reloading significantly. Now, speaking of that upgrade kit, we will have a video on that soon of upgrading this very press right here with that upgrade kit, so stay tuned. So in conclusion, like I said, the 550 is a great press. I think the learning curve is easier than their XL750, which is their model up. The XL750, of course, is a great press and is also very easy to work with, but there's a lot less going on with the 550. And one time when I was doing a story for 300 Blackout, actually one of the several videos ago I did, I had to convert the 550 to load 300 Blackout, and it took me less than 15 minutes from who knows what it was set up as, probably pistol or something. It's just mindless for me at this point. It's so easy to use, and I love grabbing this thing and loading on it. So, and like I said, it can act as a single stage if you slow down. You don't have to go fully progressive yet. You can just go slow, and then as you get comfortable, speed up. And I'd recommend, regardless whether you're experienced or not, slowing down, especially when it comes to that powder charge. I could kind of pace through everything else pretty well, but I would slow down, pay attention, make sure I have the exact powder charge, then dump that in and kind of like have this mental walkthrough, and that tends to help. Like I said, the 550 can grow with you with the upgrade path, and it's capable of loading precision ammo, like I said. Okay, so this was quite a video. This was a lot. I had fun. It was a lot of work to put this together, but I always like loading on a 550, like I said. So what do you guys think of the Dillon Precision Get Started Reloading Kit? Are you going to look at the offerings they have? The one we have is for 45 ACP, but they offer all the way up to 30-06 I saw. Same as 308 and 223, tons of pistol calibers. Is this something you're going to get? Is this something you're going to get started with? Is it something you're going to add to your collection? Maybe you're a single stage press owner already, and maybe this is something you want to get in the Dillon ecosystem, if you will. Or do you already have a Dillon press or multiple Dillon presses? Or do you already load progressive? What do you guys do? Let me know down in the comment section, and until next time, I will see you all later.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're watching Ultimate Reloader on TV and want to take advantage of free resources, exclusives, and hot deals, just hold your camera phone up to the QR code, tap on the link, fill out the information, boom, you're getting Ultimate Reloader emails. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, where we've got unrestricted content, and Instagram. Make sure to follow us on all those channels. Ultimate Reloader also has a commercial solutions division serving law enforcement, the military, and the gun industry. We have some unique capabilities, including a comprehensive suite of recoil testing and evaluation capabilities, trigger profiling, and more. Thanks again for watching.